You know, we talk so much about how the economy's been rough for so long for millions of Americans, but on the upside to some of this, it can mean great business, in fact, booming business for pawn shops. We're not just talking about the ones you see on TV either. CBS News contributor Priya David Clemens visited one busy shop in San Francisco.
From the ordinary to the unique, nearly every item in this San Francisco pawn shop tells a story of someone just trying to make ends meet.
40, 60, 75.
When 24-year-old Jesse Hanlon, a political science student at UCLA, lost part of his financial aid package, he needed a way to cover expenses.
I'm just a few $1,000s short of the money they offered me for financial aid, so I'm trying to get that. Just trying to scramble it up everywhere I can get it.
Jesse's story is a familiar one to Pacific loan and jewelry owner Michael Krasow, who's witnessed 40 years of economic ups and downs.
When I started, we averaged maybe 10 to 20 loans a day. Today we probably wrote 80, which is a slower day. We can write up to 150 loans a day.
There used to be a stigma in coming to a pawn shop, but that's changing. It's become a necessary reality for many cash-strapped Americans. What brought you here today?
To get extra money for food for, my kids.
The pawn industry has been demystified and even glorified by recent hit reality TV shows like Pawn Stars and Hardcore Pawn.
Trying to see if I can get at least 200 for it.
It may be one reason people seem more willing to avoid banks and credit cards. No questions asked.
We're seeing a group of customers of a level that's not normal to what we've had. They've evidently made a lot of money at one point, had a lot of nice things, and turning them into cash.
Jesse Hanlon walked out with a $200 loan on the gold bracelets his mother gave him.
And if I don't get it back, that'd just be devastating.
But for now, the money, he says, will help meet his tuition deadline. Up to 90% of customers come back to this shop for their items, but at an interest rate of 35 to 40%, getting cash has its price. Priya David Clemens, CBS News, San Francisco.
And joining us now is Les Gold, owner of American Jewelry and Loan in Detroit, and you may recognize him from truTV's hit reality show Hardcore Pawn. Great to have you. It's just fascinating to watch.
Thank you very much.
I'm fascinated by this whole, everything that people bring in. Have you noticed a real change in your clientele and the folks who bring stuff in?
Well, people have always brought stuff in. We deal with 1,000 people a day. So 1,000 people a day bring an enormous assortment of merchandise. So I brought a little bit with me, so people could really see what the average person would bring in.
What the average person would bring. And have you noticed a change, though, especially with the economy? Detroit hit very hard in terms of what people are bringing in.
People are bringing in anything and everything. If it has value, they're bringing it to the pawn shop. People need $5 or $5,000. So whatever they need, we're there to help them.
So you brought some really interesting items here. What are some of your favorites that you brought for us?
Well, one of my most favorite items is the Olympic torch. A gentleman came in that ran with it, and he ended up selling it to us. Most people that come in don't sell us items. They pawn us items. That's why we're a pawn shop.
Right.
But you see, we have,
Wait, I got to stop you. What would that go for?
Well, it's not actually for sale. It's going to stay in our office. This is some, the really cool stuff like that particular item we're going to keep. But, everything else is for sale.
Okay, so that one's not. Some of the other things you have, you have some beautiful jewelry here. You have, is that a Michigan ring over there?
That is a Michigan ring. That was from a Big Ten championship.
Yep.
We have Super Bowl rings. We have platinum and diamond rings, Rolexes, Tanzanite and diamond bracelets, an assortment of,
baseball cards,
video games.
And iTouch. You name it, you've got it.
We have everything. If you've seen the show, you see that there are vast amounts of merchandise.
But do you ever turn anything away?
Well, of course you do. People come in with unrealistic expectations. So we try to give them as much as we can. That's why we're a pawn shop. One of the theories that we've come up with now is the internet. The internet and the transformation of pawn shops. We have a website called pawndetroit.com that you could download a piece of merchandise, get its value, and find out how much it's actually worth. If you take it into your local pawn shop, and pawnbrokers across the country will benefit from that, as well as the customer.
Have you noticed a difference? We talked a little bit about the people coming in every day to pawn something. What about the people who come in to buy things? Have you noticed a change in that at all with the economy?
We certainly haven't. And what we've seen with that is people want to save money. The best way to save money is go to your local pawn shop. You can buy an item, and I'll just pretend that there's a number of $1,000. You go to the pawn shop, you could buy that same item for $400.
Wow.
You know, people still have anniversaries, people still have birthdays, people still get engaged. And when the economy was really bad a couple years ago, we saw an upturn in the retail market. You know, again, with, you know, people on the internet, and I don't mean to talk about the website, but if you go to pawndetroit.com,
but you're going to throw the URL in there anyway.
What the heck can I say? You know, I have to do something.
You're a wise businessman.
But you can buy, you know, people across the country can get the same deal sitting on their couch.
You talked about, you know, the Olympic torch is one of your favorites. What is the craziest thing someone has ever brought in? I mean, has there been a moment when you said, I cannot believe somebody just walked in with this item?
About a month ago, a gentleman walks in, and Ashley and I are standing at the counter, and he doesn't have anything in his hand, and he proceeded to pop out his eyeball. You know, that's one of those.
Wait a minute, really?
Yes, that was a very sickening little situation.
Did you take it?
Well, eyeballs are kind of size specific, color specific.
Kind of tough to sell.
Yeah, you know, if you have blue eyes and you got a brown eye, it's tough to, you know.
Some people have one of each.
I get it.
I have a girlfriend.
I'm sure, but that's natural. This was, you know, this was something that really was something that doesn't happen on a regular basis. But prosthetic limbs, you know, a guy came in. If you've watched, you know, the Hardcore Pawn, the show, you've seen a guy come in on a prosthetic limb and walk out with $50 and 2 crutches. So he came back to pick it up. But there's, you know what, desperate times calls for desperate measures, and people really come in with everything.
But don't bother with the eye, and you cannot find it online.
You cannot.
Let's go. Very nice to have you here. Feel free to leave any of that jewelry or the Rolex if you'd like.
Not a problem. We'll take care of you.
Thanks again.
Thanks for having me.